Mr. Chairman, Hayden Blades, always remember the line, careful what you wish for. Executive Director, Republic Bank, Nigel Batiste, Chairman, BDC, Mr. Nan Hu, Chris Lewis, our guest speaker, Ms. Cheryl Cran, participants, those who would share with us the success stories, participants, members of the media. In deciding on my topic today, I felt that the idea of bridging the gap, which is the theme of our forum and the title or part of it of our presentation by our guest speaker today, I thought that I would seek to relate to that theme business and the Trinidad and Tobago economy. And this is what I hope to share with you over the next 12 minutes or so. Gaps are very important for several reasons. And if I can bring the idea home, is think about walking along the pavement and there's a gap to the next step on that pavement. You begin to understand how, one, identifying gaps are important, and working your way around or over those gaps are important. If they are just as important in walking along the road as they are in the management of a business or the management of the economy. So I thought I would spend a little while encouraging our participants today to contemplate on what gaps might exist in your business. First, are there gaps? Or do you have a well-run, smooth, growing, booming business? The questions we might take for granted, but I urge you, you can sometimes do so at your own peril. If there are gaps in your business, what are they? How are you bridging them or closing them? Are there gaps in your knowledge of economic conditions? Are there gaps in knowledge of particular business conditions, your own business, your own sector? And very importantly, are there gaps in terms of where you can get help? Because sometimes there is a gap there. You have challenges, you have identified the gaps, but you are not so sure as to where you can seek help. Clearly, you would have recognized that on an occasion like this today, Republic Bank and the BDC have in fact teamed up to seek to assist you in identifying the gaps and hopefully in suggesting ways in which you might seek to bridge or close those gaps. In general, very often, gaps are about knowledge, what we know, what we don't know. So let us continue to ponder on some of the questions I hope that you will take with you home today and to answer in respect of your individual businesses. Is the Trinidad and Tobago economy in a slump or in a recession? Now, I think for those who think that that is important, we can discuss that a little later on. But most importantly, what position is my business? In other words, things are happening out there in the economy. Ministers are being changed or reshuffled. New ones are coming in. All kinds of things are happening in the global economy, and some of them we would touch on. But critically, always the important question is, what is happening in my individual business? If my business is in a slump or a recession or whatever, how do I get out? If my business is growing, how do I grow even faster, I think is the question for you. Does the cabinet reshuffle mean anything for my business? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Now let me say at this stage that while I pose the questions, they are not, the intention is not that I will answer all those questions. We have people like Nigel Batiste and the BDC people here who they are going to help us with those questions which are difficult. When will the economy begin to grow again? Very good question. Is what is happening in the global economy important for your individual business or no? And how do I address what I consider important? And again, where can I get help? There are organizations like the BDC, like Republic Bank, that are available to help you find some of those answers. And there might simply be a gap, not so much in your business, but in your knowledge, in what you know or what you don't know. What is RBL about? Well, as I indicated, helping business to bridge or to close gaps. And I underline helping because we are not going to do it by ourselves. We count on you as entrepreneur, as business person, to play the most critical role. Now, what I did there was to help you to, or attempt to help you to see what are some of the key economic indicators. Now, there was a gap somewhere between what I told the computer to do and what the computer did in terms of your ability to read that table. So we're going to have to try to fill that gap or bridge that gap as we go along. So that essentially what that does is to speak to the statistics, to the indicators of where this economy is. And we are hoping, the idea is that we share that with you this morning and help to close the gap that you might have in respect of where this economy is at the present time. Don't bother that you can't read the statistics. I would go through the main ones with you. And the first one has to do with growth in this economy. You would have heard about the 3 years of decline following some 15 years of growth, and you would have heard the central bank governor speak about 2 or 3 quarters of decline, and that growth in this year 2012 is uncertain, although there is some expectation that we would do at least a 1% growth. There are questions as to whether we can accomplish that, but just to give you an idea of the figures and what we're talking about, the expectation is that there's going to be a 1% growth in 2012, with that growth strengthening into next year. In respect of the inflation rate, well, we have had some surprises, very high rates coming down and then going back up again. The estimate of inflation for this year by the central bank is around 7%. So if the inflation rate is important to what you do in your business, then that is a figure that we are working with for this year. As you know, there are several risks to these indicators. Unfortunately, many of them, or most of them, on the downside. Interest rates, as many of you would be interested in, continue to remain low. And I don't have to tell you where you can get the lowest lending rates. I think you know where you can find those rates and the service to match those rates. And so I will not detain you with that. The unemployment rate, in 2011, it was an average of 5.5. It continues to be a little higher. Our estimates at Republic Bank is that it is going to be around 6% this year, although I don't think other people would want to share a higher unemployment rate with you, but we are willing to suggest that. Oil prices have in fact been rising over the last couple of years, but unfortunately indications are that oil prices are going to be on the decline for this year compared to last year, at least when it was over $100. So we're looking at somewhere around $90 or less. Indeed, just yesterday, I think I saw a figure of $70-something. So that has implications for energy revenues, therefore government expenditure, and we would see what the Minister of Finance would show when the budget is presented. But oil prices, very important to this economy. We do not expect them to be as high as last year, this year, and it can be more of the same next year. Gas prices have fallen substantially for several reasons, and we might go into that, just being over $2 and something cents. A particular area of the economy that remains strong is the country's stock of foreign reserves. That is always important because it bears relevance or is directly related to what happens to our exchange rate, which is very important to businesses that import, but those that export as well, although in this audience I think we're speaking to those who are involved by and large in imports. I must say that the country's reserves remain very strong. 13.5 months of import cover, approximately $10 billion plus another $4 billion in what is called the rainy day savings, if you like, or the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. So that I think when we look at the key indicators of this economy, as is used for many other economies globally, Trinidad and Tobago is not in a bad place. However, what it says, though, is that given what is happening globally, in particular the slowing of the global economy, and in its wake, the falling energy prices, and our rising fiscal deficit and total debt, that we need to be very, very careful going forward. So that is the general idea as far as the economy is concerned. And I would look forward very much to whatever questions you might have on the individual indicators. I would share with you and help to close that, or bridge that knowledge gap to the extent that one exists. I will share with you some of my thoughts on some of the questions which I raised, so that I will not leave it entirely up to you to answer them, to answer the questions. As I indicated, after 3 years of decline, the economy is expected to show some growth this year, and that is something that you may wish to work with. The fact is that there is a major gap in investments, maybe not by the small and medium-sized businesses, maybe not, but certainly by the government in its capital infrastructure programs and projects, and in terms of foreign direct investment, and in terms of domestic investments or larger size domestic investments. So there are gaps, and the theme speaks to the gaps that needs to be bridged if we are going to have growth in this economy anytime soon. I suggest that only time will tell how effective the cabinet reshuffle is and whether or not it is going to help or hinder the turnaround of the economy. In business, one always must be hopeful. I would not necessarily say optimistic, but we must always be hopeful that whatever interventions are made in terms of policy and economic management, that they would redound to the growth of the economy and to an improvement in the economy. Of course, for us here today in business, we need to see what we can do, whether the economy is good or bad, to grow our individual business. We must never lose focus. Similar point. I have already indicated that the external economy is likely to be with us. The weak external economy is going to be with us for a while, and we need to take that on board when we do our planning in our individual businesses. Well, how do I conclude? Just a few points. The theme of bridging the gap is very important. It's very appropriate at this time, and I want to encourage businesses to examine carefully where are the gaps in the business that you are running. Is it running? Is it in your HR? Is it in the area of your marketing? Is it that you need to employ an economist? Where is the gap? You need to think. As you would note, RBL and the BDC are very pleased to team up and to be able to help you today to bridge or to close what gaps there might be. The rest is up to you, the entrepreneur. I hope that I have been able to share a few thoughts with you that would cause you to think about your business and to look forward to the rest of the day, and I want to indeed wish you a very fruitful day and event. Thanks very much for listening.